Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me on my poster today. I am a Master's of Counseling Psychology student, and before that I was a mental health worker. And my question today is time management a mental health issue? And I'm going to argue that it actually is. And I know for a lot of us, our associations with time management is something along the lines of David Allen, kind of high-powered executives getting more stuff done, being more productive, and kind of contributing to this capitalist system that we have. And my argument is that time management is an incredibly complex skill which impacts every single area of our lives and how successful we are in doing whatever it is that we're doing, whether or not we are running a company or we're just trying to run our lives according to our values. And so as you can see here, I'm being joined by my dog because I am working from home. We're in a pandemic, and suddenly all of the structure of our lives has really shown an underlying issue that we don't have a lot of structure in our lives, and when we don't, a lot of things fall apart. We've noticed that with ourselves, and we've noticed that probably with the people that we work with. And it's kind of a cruel irony that for things like ADHD or recovery from a number of disorders, that we can say things like, your life needs more structure, or that, having good routines and rituals are really going to help you. And the cruel irony is that for a lot of us, we don't know how to make that happen in our lives. And so we go around in this vicious circle. And what tends to happen is, as counselors, we're not encouraging people necessarily to be more productive in their lives, but we are encouraging them to do a bunch of self-care, to live according to their values and their priorities and their principles. And so we are asking them to do things and to put things into their lives and to get it done and to come back next week and hopefully they've done their homework or what they said they're going to do. And when they don't, what do we do? And what we typically don't do is jump in and say, is there a problem with time management? Because that, again, is siloed as something not necessarily connected to all the other skills that we are trying to supply our clientele with: social skills, problem-solving skills, emotional regulation skills. Why not time management? Because the problem is that when people can't do the things that they say they're going to do, that they want to do, they tend to blame themselves. And we see this in ADHD, of course. There is shame and blame. There's a sense of hopelessness that why can't I just do the things that I know that I need to do, and a sense of failure. None of those things are ultimately helping our clients. They're not helping them feel good about themselves or get the things done that they need to do. And there's been some really startling revelations with some evidence that's coming out that it's not just people with ADHD that struggle with visualizing time, understanding time, and being strategic about their time. It's all of us. And there's a reason for that. When we think about time, it's an abstract concept. It takes a lot of mental energy to imagine what this concept of time is and what it means for us, and what it means for us in an ever-changing life with less and less structure. There's less and less structure even before a pandemic, right? We have people working 5 different jobs. They're creatives, they're contract workers, they have children, they have all these different responsibilities. How do you structure that yourself? And this is a missing link and kind of like a missing stair on a staircase, and people keep on falling because this missing link is there. And then when it's missing and things don't go the way that they wanted them to, they don't reach the goals that they wanted to, they blame themselves. And so my argument is that it's not that we're undermotivated, it's not that we're resistant to change, it's that we're humans and we need tools. And we're not getting the right tools right now when it comes to time management. And my dad is a carpenter, and his words to live by are, you need the right tools for the right job. So imagine trying to budget your family budget, and all you've got to go on is the abstract concept that money exists and it's limited. You're not going to get very far with your budgeting, right? It's going to be too abstract, overwhelming, utterly frustrating. And so I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for a decade, but I was thinking about this around the time that Queen's Gambit, everybody was binging it. I was binging it. And as a result, a friend got me a lovely chessboard for Christmas, and I started playing chess again. And I had learned to play chess when I was a child, and I got back into it. And I realized that as much as I struggle, or I think I struggle, with time, being strategic, thinking things through, when I'm playing chess, I didn't. when I played chess and I started to get back into it, I'm very rusty, I was able to look at the board and think 3 steps ahead. I was able to measure all these different priorities that were very complex. You have all these different moving pieces that do different things, and you've got an opponent that's also going to act in potentially unpredictable ways. And so here I am seeing myself being perfectly capable of being strategic, and I was winning games. And yet, why wasn't that level of feeling like in control and strategic happening for me in my life? And I have ADHD, and many of my friends and family have ADHD, birds of a feather flock together. Thinking, why can't we reach these kinds of levels of strategy in our lives? Because when I look at a to-do list, my brain explodes, because there's nothing on there other than what I need to do. There's nothing telling me in what order, and there's nothing telling me how to manage my own energy around it. And so I think that constant decision fatigue is very difficult, not just for people with ADHD, I think for everyone. And I think something that we need to be honest with ourselves about is that human brains just aren't very good at imagining a future that doesn't exist yet. And so we have tools. And in this case, I decided to make a visual tool for both time and priorities and energy, and see if that helped me be more strategic. And when it did, I started trying it out on other people. And when it helped them, I thought, this is really interesting, and maybe this actually does need to be looked at as something that we can share with others, not just children. I mean, it does look a bit like a children's game, but it actually has the potential to help a lot of adults. So far, I've only tried it on adults. And so we're going to explore the kind of system that I created. And so one thing to note is, I'm calling it the Sage board. One thing to note is that it is not a to-do list. It is the friend of a to-do list. The to-do list is the brain dump of all the things that are weighing on us that we need to do. And I highly encourage that people write things on their to-do list as soon as they can, so that it's not circulating around and around in their effort to hold on to all of the things that we're trying to remember that we're doing. That brain dump is really important, and I'm not trying to get rid of that. What we can do then is take what is on our to-do list as a piece of information about the different areas of our lives that need attention. And then we can't really prioritize these little tiny to-do lists: water the plants, clean the bathroom, pick up kids from school. But we can prioritize where those things belong in our lives, larger chunks such as housework, family, responsibilities. And so we're prioritizing those. And I do appreciate the matrix of urgent and important. That one's been very popular for a long time. I struggle with it, and I know that other people struggle with it as well, discerning between the urgent and the important, and then where does it end up in your day anyways, right? And so what I've done is simplified that what a priority is what makes your life work. When you don't have it, your life falls apart. And I think that this is fairly relatable and easy and tangible to understand, because facing people with prioritizing is extremely difficult. It really speaks to why we have challenges with time. If we can't prioritize, of course we have problems with time management. And the second kind of matrix for planning the day, which I'll go into in more detail in a second, is energy and availability. So are you doing things at the appropriate time when you actually can do them? You can't go to the store if the store is closed. You can't go to work if it's not the time to go to work. So you do have to measure your time around the availability of things, but also your energy. So if you're prioritizing along how important you said something is in your life, and in the order of, is this an energizing thing to do? Will I have realistically the energy to do it? Then we can really start to build out a day. And once we start doing that, we learn a lot about ourselves. We can learn a lot about our preferences. We can learn a lot about what's taking time in our lives that may not even be that high up on our list of priority. And because it is visual, and because it stays there looking at us the same way that a chessboard stares at us and asks us to solve these problems, we can start to really gather that self-knowledge and start really building on our knowledge rather than forgetting it every day, as many people with ADHD, and I think a lot of other adults, fully functioning adults, do. And the other thing that the system tries to teach is the finiteness of our energy and of our time, and how to funnel down our priorities into that finiteness. Because a to-do list with 20 items on it, I don't know about you, but I look at it and I think I should do that all today. I can do that all today. And then I'm endlessly frustrated when I don't. And instead, when you are blocking out your time in something that is naturally very limited, you start to get a sense of just how quickly the days go and why they feel like they go so quickly, because you're visually seeing how you've rearranged things on a very tiny space that represents our days quite accurately, I think. Which also means that we start having to think about where we're going to say no. And that is incredibly difficult for many of us, especially people with ADHD, who have, endless creativity and energy and say yes to a lot of things impulsively. And yet when we have this kind of piece of kind of ever-evolving self-knowledge that is a physical, visual, and tangible tool with us, we start to get a little bit humbled by the fact that we in fact did not do all those things today, and now we need to rethink and re-strategize for tomorrow. And why didn't those things get done? Well, it was probably an energy, availability, and priority thing. So without further ado, I am going to explore the Sage board. Alright, so I've got my materials arranged. I've got a kind of rough to-do list, not to-do list as much as areas of life that constantly have to-do list items attached to them. I've got my board and I've got my little pieces. These are just magnets. These are buttons that I put magnets on. All right, now this is the fun part, and I would recommend leaving about 15 to 20 minutes to do this with yourself or with another, because it really does challenge you to think about your priorities, and those are going to change in the course of that 15-20 minutes. It can even be quite frustrating for some people who haven't had to think about their priorities lately, or had to think about what prioritizing actually consists of. So right away, this looks like my, let's say if we have a client here who goes to school, this looks like something that's appropriate for school. So where does it belong? And so we're going to put it up on this front, our top row, I should say. This being a 1 and this being a 10. And the simplest way that I have put it to people, and this seems to be well understood, is 10 is your life falls apart, or I say your life is on fire if you don't have that thing, and 1 is your life is pretty much the same if you don't have that thing. So school, I'm going to try to find a place for it. It's pretty important. So what are people going to do? You probably guessed it. It's going to look like that at first. What you're going to have to do is gently encourage them to pretend that this is not allowed, and that you have to, just for the sake of experimentation, you have to prioritize. So let's say that this represents that person's work. Work is very important. Life will fall apart without it as well. They're going to do something like that, like this. And then really thinking about what causes life to catch on fire, what causes life to really fall apart. And actually, if a school assignment was late, would life fall apart? Probably not. If I was late for work, or if a work assignment wasn't done, would my life fall apart? Maybe not. Okay, that looks good. Let's find something that's a little less high stakes. This is going to be something like housework. Okay, so at first we're going to say, well, housework's really important. But that's going to get a bit complicated because we're going to keep on adding things in. This is going to be your social life. Well, aren't the people in your life important? Of course they are. Would your life fall apart without them? Yeah. Okay, so where do you put them now? And then, of course, there's self-care, which is also very important. Would your life fall apart without it? Well, actually, yeah. So let's see here. Maybe self-care actually does need to come before work, because without self-care, we're not able to do work. Great. Okay, that's interesting. And what about our relationships? Are they more important than school? For this person, they are. Okay, that's good. Looking good. Let's add a couple more. Okay, so now we have a pretty full life here, and it seems to rack up pretty quickly for folks, realizing how full their life actually is and how many things are actually being required of them. It can be actually pretty validating to see this is why they feel so busy, this is why they feel so overtaxed, and especially when all of their priorities were clumped over here. No wonder they feel like everything is on fire all the time. But when we really have to stretch it down the line, and you have some 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, it can start to feel a little bit less like the life that they're living is a constant emergency, having to painfully bring some things over here and really look at what's over here. And what I've noticed is that usually halfway in between when we're doing this, some kind of bigger questions come up. What does make my life fall apart? What keeps my life good and functional? What makes my life feel meaningful? What are the reasons that I'm doing the things that I'm doing? Have I forgotten what those reasons are? Am I doing them for someone else? That starts to come up really quickly, which has been a pretty incredible process to witness other people do, and for myself as well. Okay, now the fun part, number 2, we get to plan the day. So the day is coming down this column. This is the morning, this is the night. So over here, let's say this is housework. We know that we need to sweep today. It's in our to-do list or whatever that might be. The point is putting it in its place, essentially, in our lives. Just because it's on our to-do list and just because it seems to be on the front of our to-do list doesn't mean we should actually do it today or soon or at the particular time that it strikes us to do it. And so fortunately for them, they've decided that first thing in the morning is a good time for them to do self-care. And so that goes right there. So that's excellent. You've got your first priority checked off right first thing in the morning. That's going to feel nice. This is work. And so we know already work belongs after this. It's going to take up this kind of chunk of time. Again, this is just kind of eyeballing it. This is not exact times. The purpose of that also is to give you a sense of just how finite time is during a day. This is one day and it's already pretty much done. And so we're looking at these and they all did originally feel extremely urgent and important. But realistically, we're only going to be able to fit 1 or 2 other things in. And the way that we're going to do that was when we're thinking about availability and energy. And so we know this is another top priority. So let's think about this. Do we have the energy and availability to socialize a bit tomorrow with a beloved friend, let's say? And let's say we do actually know that somebody is available tomorrow, and after work we typically do have that kind of energy to get together for a Zoom call or something. And so we can put that right there. So now we know that we have actually done some of our top priority things in this day, and we've done it in a time that felt appropriate for us. And all of these things, as much as they're on our to-do list, at least when they're off of a to-do list and onto the board, we can see how low priority they are. Does it really matter if we don't do these tomorrow? Not particularly. We might want to end the day off. This was just kind of some like general administrative tax type things that the person needed to do. And so they might want to just put in 15 minutes at the end of their day towards that, just so that they can go to bed knowing that they did a bit of adulting, got that out of the way. They saw that it was pretty high priority, not life on fire kind of priority, but it would still be really nice to do. And they figured that they would be able to do it because they've just had their time with their friend. They find that energizing. They're going to be able to knock that off of their to-do list and maybe even get a better sleep because that's how that works for them. Now, at first, it's disappointing that all of the things didn't make it to the day. And something that might be really important to emphasize is the most important things made it. So that's amazing. And that we only have capacity for so much in a day. And so you can see how very personal this is to everyone. For somebody else, because they socialize, they may not be able to do this. And this stays how it is. I have magnets here for a reason because I don't want these to move. I want to be able to come back at the end of the day and say, okay, did I do this, and this? And if not, why not? And so let's say I didn't do this. Let's put it back here so that I know that I need to do it and I remember that it was fairly high priority. So I can come back to it tomorrow and plan it into tomorrow. But if I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, why didn't I get that done? Well, maybe actually because socializing is exhausting for me. This is a new person who isn't much of an extrovert. I can't actually do my taxes after I have a full day of work and socialize. So maybe next time what I'm going to do is I'm going to socialize later and do that first. And so important. This is never meant to be a source of self-recrimination. What it's meant to be is a tool of self-discovery, to really discover what works for us and why. A to-do list basically is a binary. Either you did the thing or you didn't do the thing. And people feel very good when they did the things on their to-do list and feel very bad when they didn't. This is meant to help us navigate each of our days in a way that feels good and right to us. It's not meant to tell us that that we failed in some way, it's meant to tell us how to do better next time, and to let us know more about our energy and what we had capacity for. Because often, and I'm speaking to the ADHD folks out there, we overestimate our capacity all the time. We say yes to way too many things, and then we actually find that we are exhausted, and we're not quite sure why we're so exhausted, anxious, and resentful. And not just ADHD people, but I think lots of people can relate to that. What I hope that you've gotten out of this is that we can recognize that as mental health professionals, we can help start bridging that gap between the brilliant, purpose-driven lives that we're encouraging people to acknowledge that they want to live, and actually getting there, having the tools and the self-knowledge that is ever building and growing to get there and actually start putting these things into place. Because without bridging that gap with them and for ourselves as well, we are setting ourselves and others up for some disappointment, which can be taken deeply personally as personal failure. And I personally don't think that our struggles with time management should be taken personally. I don't think they should be taken personally the way that many other lacking skills in our lives should be taken personally. We have human brains that were not actually designed for conceptualizing time very well or very accurately. And that is a struggle that is real, that we can acknowledge and destigmatize and normalize with ourselves and with our clients, and that there should be no shame in having to use something that is like a little bit like a game, in order to help us reach better ideas of our capacity and our priorities. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I have a few other ways of using the Sage board that I don't have the time to explore today. So if you would like to get in touch, please feel free to email me. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you think you're going to be using it with yourself, your kids, your clients, your spouse. Highly recommend. And I will get back to you with another recording of a few other ideas around the Sage board. Thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy the conference and take care.